Because I did not attack the principles of Scientology, because I still had respect for them, something unprecedented happened, and that is that Scientologists who were supporting the organization began to read the newspaper articles. And something unprecedented then happened because of that, which has been occurring over the past year and a half, and that is that information about what really goes on at the top, what really gets done with the money, how people are being deceived, how they're being used and abused, is getting to active Scientologists. And what is occurring is, probably with greater speed than ever before, a lot of their support is leaving. People have described it as an exodus. And as they leave, there's more testimonies that come out about, that corroborate what I've been saying. It's gotten to a point where, this was an unintended consequence, but this is just what occurred, that they have now appointed me as evil on the level of Mrs. Caberta, and pursue me every day. For the last 140 days, my wife and I have had a group of 6 to 8 of them in front of our house, 2 or 3 times a day, screaming at us when we leave. Everywhere I go in the United States, when I go by airline, they hack into the airline computers and they have teams of PIs waiting at the airports. They even knew about my Hamburg trip, even though I told nobody about it. Clearly by the same method, 3 days before me leaving, they showed up at my house protesting that fact. They have, it's kind of ironic that they're outside in front right now playing out the Grand Inquisition. They're trying to position me as a heretic because I'm telling people that they don't need that organization, they don't need the cult, they don't need the mind control, they don't need to go bankrupt, they don't need to be forced into disconnecting from family members, they don't need to go through any of that in order to read the material, because all of the material is out there and available. Scientologists don't understand that are involved with the church. They think that their immortal future is being held by David Miscavige, this individual that I've described to you as a sociopath and a violent one at that. So I think that message, I thought that was a vital message to be gotten out in Germany, because they are so well trained to stay away from the media and not look at what they call attacks on Scientology. And I think it's significant that you might have a readership and the word might get around to people that you never got through to before because of the way I'm approaching this. Specifically as it relates to Germany, I've had the opportunity to talk to Mrs. Caberta and find out that a lot of the propaganda the church has put out about her predictably is not true. She holds nothing against me for continuing to consider Scientology philosophy something that's useful to me and something that I believe is useful to others, and I actually do that for my living. I counsel people using Scientology. And I thought one thing that was of interest and importance to her was to share the church's strategy and how they came about getting the United States government to go after her and go after Germany as a whole, to try to position them as some sort of totalitarian, intolerant country that was living out some kind of chapters from the past. I find it extremely hypocritical that the US government is doing the bidding of somebody who is probably the most intolerant, totalitarian individual I've ever met in my life, to try to use that exact positioning against others, particularly when I come here and I find that the allegations they're making are not based on fact. David Miscavige knows virtually nothing about Germany, and yet, and this is true of a lot of things that he does, and yet he was the one that just off the cuff came up with the positioning to make them, to position them with 1930s Germany. And then untold sums of money were spent in forwarding that positioning and convincing the United States government to believe that it's true. Celebrities were pulled out. Greta Van Susteren, Fox News analyst, who was a good friend with the Clintons, spent many nights at personal dinners at the White House during their administration, educating them, quote unquote, on Scientology in Germany. Secretary of Defense Cohen, at the time, was a neighbor and a personal friend of Tom Cruise, who got, quote unquote, educated on Germany and Scientology. John Travolta, of course, had a direct communication line to Clinton and used that to, quote unquote, educate him on Scientology in Germany. Ann Archer spent 2 hours in the Oval Office with Bill Clinton. Ann Archer is the actress and the mother of the church's current international spokesperson, Tommy Davis. A lot was invested into PR firms and law firms, and tremendous sums of money have been paid to the Washington, D.C. law firm of Williams & Connolly, which serves as the personal attorney for David Miscavige and has since the 1980s, who also happened to represent both the Clintons themselves personally on their book deals, also on the Lewinsky scandal, the current Attorney General, Eric Holder, and his problems that he's had, and virtually a whole who's list of the hierarchy of the Clinton machine. So this was, a tremendous amount of money was spent, a tremendous amount of influence was used with celebrities, and again, I think that is why this is a continuing situation. I think there was a bit of a respite during the Bush years, not that I'm a big Bush fan, and I'm not, but they didn't have the access that they had during the 90s, but they've got it again, because if you look at the roster, at who the Secretary of State is now and who holds all the cabinet positions, it's the same old crowd that the church has spent 15 to 20 years investing in to push this campaign, which again, at the end of the day, is about as hypocritical a campaign as you could imagine, because virtually, if you listen to what I've described on how Scientology is run from the very top, they literally are accusing you of that which Miscavige himself is doing. I've been asked what is the most effective action to take to curb abuses of the Church of Scientology, and the answer is pretty simple. It is to focus on the money, because this is where the greatest abuse comes from. This is the motivation that really is behind the abuses that are most affecting people. People are being driven into bankruptcy, people are being driven into losing their homes, because there's a tremendous drive and a tremendous push to get people to just give money to the church. Not for services or anything else, just give money for their war chest, for their buildings, or for whatever. And two, to stay focused on where this comes from. It comes from the top. I mean, there's not a single Scientologist, I think, in Hamburg that if they were sitting in the room face to face with me that I wouldn't enjoy and get along with, and I don't think you would have that problem either. Absent the indoctrination into the abusive practices that are now become common and have become overriding within the church. That's been my general advice. And I think that's it. We can open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Okay.